Hi, my name's Eleni. I'm here from Arts Edge at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. And I've got a question. Who doesn't love opera?
It's not my first choice.
That's my friend Samantha.
I know that I've seen more than one.
We got together a while back so I could share with Samantha my love of opera. It wasn't an easy sell.
Kids our age, they'd rather spend money seeing, whatever popular band at some obscure concert in Brooklyn than going to the opera. You tell people you like opera and you like classical music and you just kind of hear crickets because nobody knows how to react to it.
Welcome to my life.
You do things for the people that you love, and going to opera was one of those things that I did.
Like a lot of kids, Samantha went to the opera the first time with a member of her family, in this case, her grandma, who was someone that organized symphony concerts and piano and dance recitals, and who loves opera, just loves it. When Samantha was little, she and her grandma would go into New York for concerts at Lincoln Center.
It was cool. You get to go into New York. You get to dress up. It's just a whole experience.
They were special concerts just for kids, where the orchestra would play and the conductor would stop in the middle and explain everything that was going on. Samantha loved it.
You were allowed to get up and ask questions. So it was really exciting because it was interactive and it wasn't too long, and you get to go into New York, and it was all fancy. And it was at Avery Fisher Hall, and right next to Avery Fisher Hall is the Met.
The Met, the home of the Metropolitan Opera.
We would see it sometimes, and it would just look so beautiful. And my grandma would talk about how at night they had these big Chagall paintings, and I was really into art, and I was so excited. And I would always kind of hope that we would end up staying later, or that the sun would go down soon so we could see the paintings. And it just seemed like this big, beautiful museum of a place. So I was like, oh, the opera must be so exciting.
It's sad to say, but it didn't turn out that way. The first time Samantha's grandma took her to the opera, it wasn't at the Met. And that wasn't the only problem when they sat down for a performance of Madame Butterfly.
So we go in, and we found out that the opera was going to be, I don't remember, I think it was in French.
Madame Butterfly? Madama? No, that's Italian.
So it was in Italian, and that automatically makes you panic because I don't know Italian, and I don't usually understand people when they're singing.
Madame Butterfly is a beautiful opera, really gorgeous, if you're an adult. The key thing about it for kids is it's really, really long.
I just remember being kind of frustrated. And operas are long, and you do get an intermission, but you can't really move around because everybody makes a beeline for the bathroom, or you just kind of want to stand up, and you're just standing up in this 2-foot space, and you start to get relaxed, and then it's like, okay, we have to sit down for another 2.5 hours because the rest of the opera has to go.
I was bored when I saw Butterfly the first time.
The thing is, we probably saw it in the winter, so, sunlight is short as it is. You go in and the sun's up, and you come out and the sun's down, and it could have been maybe 3 hours, but it feels like 7 because you come out and it's nighttime, and you're like, where did my entire day go?
It's true.
And it's like, and now we have to talk about it. And you don't really remember because you were so confused, and sometimes you're not fully conscious.
Now, just to be clear, there's nothing here that's a slam on Samantha's grandma.
I don't love the opera, but I love my grandmother, and I know that she loves it, and I really appreciate the time that we would spend together.
No, this is about adults in general, especially adults who've developed a deep love of opera. It's tough sometimes, if opera is the love of your life, to think back, to remember what it was like when opera wasn't the thing that filled your heart and made your eyes sparkle. It's tough to remember when opera was just a big, fat mystery. What I'm sensing from what you say is that she sort of played it and was like, isn't this lovely?
Yeah. Yeah, I was more of a, isn't this so beautiful? You know, she's a very passionate woman, but I do remember her saying one time that my dad was beautiful, and I was just really confused by that. It's like,
what is that?
And I was like, boys can't be beautiful. Yes, they can. Everything can be beautiful.
Now, I know about this because I could have had the exact same experience. Like Samantha's grandmother, my dad loves opera. Just absolutely loves it. He introduced me to it when I was really young, maybe 4, just like Samantha. But today, I love opera, just like my dad. And for adults who love the opera, there are some important lessons to learn here from my experience and from the way my dad went about introducing me to the thing he loved best. First of all, if you're introducing a kid to opera, you have to prepare. I think one of the reasons Samantha and her grandma never really connected is because preparing is tough to do from a distance. My dad, of course, lived in the same house as me. Samantha's grandma didn't live with Samantha.
I remember getting a book about different operas, like a children's book. I mean, I think it would be nice if we had all, sat together and read the book, because she's a really great storyteller and I remember just loving when we would sleep over and she would read us a bedtime story. Aww. I just loved to listen to her read, and she would get very animated when she did that.
Samantha agrees. It was important that my dad was by my side when the time was right to teach me about opera.
I think because your father was a teacher at the time when he was raising you, he had...
Right. He's inherently silly. I mean...
Right, yeah, no, I mean, it's very important to be able to live those teachable moments. Like, you learn about it, I went to school for education, you learn about these teachable moments, and just everything can be a lesson, and they don't have to know it. Just having that experience, I think, really made a difference. And I think it would have probably made a difference for me.
It is true that my dad took every opportunity to tell me something about opera, even things he knew I might not get until I was a lot older. One of my favorite stories is, this is so funny because I was 6? And he's always talking about the Ring Cycle. He's a huge Wagner fan, my father. And Wagner is just as heavy as it gets. Even opera goers don't like Wagner, But what he used to do was, the very opening of the Ring Cycle, it begins in absolute darkness. And he starts it on this very low chord. And he calls it, I guess, sort of the translation of the German is primeval darkness. And my dad, I was again, 6. And my dad is saying, everybody, okay, get ready for primeval darkness. And he had us run around the house, shutting off all the lights, just to get ready for the primeval darkness, which is so hilarious because I don't even know what primeval, I had to look it up the other day. I didn't even know what primeval meant. But what's great about that is that I think it also sort of fosters it later for a kid. So then, when I'm actually quite recently got back into Wagner, I remember that and I was like, oh yeah, primeval darkness, this is so cool. Another lesson from my dad to all the parents and grandparents out there: if you want kids to like opera, it's important to let them know ahead of time what's going to happen. I think that's the key. I think stripping the thing down to its basics, something as crazy as the Ring Cycle, is real. I mean, it's all about a father and a daughter. It's about a dad telling his girl, look, you can't do this. And she does it, and he's annoyed. No, I mean, that's really what it is. And then he puts her in a ball of fire, which doesn't usually happen, but hey, he grounds her really for life is what happens. Cherubino in The Marriage of Figaro is a 14-year-old boy. All he's doing is going through hormonal issues, the whole opera. And he has one aria that is all about my heart is racing and I don't know why. And no, seriously. And she's laughing at me.
Puberty. It's really funny.
Exactly what it is.
I wish I watched that in health class instead of, the miracle of life.
it. Oh my God, so true. It would be so much better. Of course, explaining the story might only be half the problem. This being opera, as you can hear, they might be singing in a foreign language. You remember what Samantha said about her first opera.
So it was in Italian, and that automatically makes you panic because I don't know Italian.
What do you do about that? Well, there's one easy solution. Go to an opera that's in English.
I do know that I saw The Barber of Seville in New Jersey with my parents, and it was done in English. And the tunes are so catchy, and, it's got that iconic, Figaro and the
patter songs.
Yeah, and so it's much more exciting for a child, and I think you kind of need to wean them into it.
Absolutely. The patter songs are great because they're instantly recognizable, and then it becomes sort of like, can you sing along? And even if you don't understand Italian, bravo, Figaro, bravo, bravissimo, you want to say those things really quickly. So it's really kind of fun, and it's like you can then take it out of the opera house.
Oh, definitely. You sing the whole Figaro part because it's just so funny. And, I was singing it, my dad was singing it, I remember singing it in the shower,
Do you think the English had something to do with it? Do you think the voices
you could understand it so
Right.
much better because it was in English. I do remember really loving The Barber of Seville.
My dad was also really sly in that he started me on Gilbert and Sullivan.
I am the very model of a modern major general. I've information, vegetable, animal, and mineral. I know the kings of England and I quote the fights historical, from Marathon to Waterloo in order categorical. I'm very well...
And that's something I would recommend because that's in English and there's tons of, it's always upbeat, it's always funny. There's tons of patter songs.
I'm very good at integral and differential calculus. I know the scientific names of beings, animalculus. In short, matters vegetable, animal, and mineral. I am the very model of a modern major general.
And it's very interactive. My dad reminded me of this the other day, that we had seen a production where the modern major general had everybody in the audience count off all the bits of the song with him so that he didn't miss anything. In short, in matters vegetable, animal, and mineral, I am the very model of a modern major general, and he would just count it off on his fingers.
For my military knowledge, though I'm plucky and adventurous, has only been brought down at the beginning of the century. But still in matters vegetable, animal, and mineral, I am the very model of a modern major general.
So making sure to prepare and making it fun to prepare, making sure you explain the story, making sure you remember that most kids don't know foreign languages, all these things are really important. Because, as I said, if you're hoping to create a lifetime love of opera, it's smart to get started when someone's really young. That's when we first find the thing that will become our passion in life. Even if we don't know it then, even if we don't remember why or when it first made us happy, it usually starts when we're young. Like, look at Samantha. Today, she works with food.
I'm really huge on cooking. I love cooking. I just remember being very young and, maybe as young as 3 or 4 and just watching my mother cook. And I know my mom remembers this one time she was making fruit salad and I'm sitting at the table and I'm like begging, like, Mom, can I have a piece of fruit? Can I have a piece of... Just wait until I'm done, Samantha. Just wait until I'm done. And I'm like, Mom, please. And she, just wait until I'm finished. And I get really quiet. And then I just so quietly start to sing, I like to eat apples and bananas. And she felt so bad. She said she couldn't cut up that fruit salad fast enough. So I've always loved food, and I just think I associate it with my family and my friends and just being able to express that love.
I've had the same feeling about opera. It's something I've always associated with my family, and that's a trick my dad pulled off too. He just had it playing around the house all the time. I think that's it. It was sort of subliminal. It was just like, this is what is done. This is what is music. And it's something that I associated with him. And I think that's kind of a nice thing, too, because I think that might be somehow psychologically connected because it would just be playing in the background while we're making food.
Oh, it's completely...
The opera's there.
It's completely connected. I learned in one of my classes that the olfactory nerve, which is the sense of smell in your brain, is it's literally right next to the part of your brain that controls your memories.
Oh, wow.
So if you're cooking Or if you're
Right.
eating or whatever and you smell something and there's music playing in the background,
Right.
you'll automatically connect the
Associate it
two.
with
You'll
that.
associate the two. So you'll be like, oh, I remember Carmen because I was eating blah, blah, blah. Or I remember
Right.
this person was making that, or I was at this restaurant
Right.
and they had my favorite dish.
Oh, and there's one last trick. If you're going to take a kid to the opera, be careful which opera you pick. Some are just right for kids, some are just so wrong. There are actually operas that are kid-friendly. Cunning Little Vixen is one. The Barber of Seville works well too. And La Cenerentola, Cinderella, is a good bet. But there's one that's almost guaranteed to make your kid an opera fan. Even if it's set in Spain and sung in French, even if it's almost 150 years old.
I remember, Eleni telling me that the first opera that she ever saw was Carmen, and I was so jealous.
Si tu ne m'aimes pas, si tu ne m'aimes pas, je t'aime. Mais si je t'aime, prends garde à toi.
Carmen. As I explained to Samantha, Carmen is considered almost a perfect opera. First, because it highlights pretty much all of the major vocal parts. Carmen is a mezzo-soprano. And that usually indicates that there's something different about her, that she's either very mature or usually they are seductive. So it's got a mezzo-soprano lead, and then there's a soprano who's sort of her foil, Michaela, who's lovely and sweet and sings super high and always sings about God and is like one step away from being a nun. And then the lead male, Don José, is a tenor. And then the sort of rival for Carmen that José has, Escamillo, is a bass baritone.
Seigneur, Seigneur, car avec les solats. Oui, le Cornello, veut s'attendre. Pour plaisir, ils ont le commun.
What else makes Carmen so great is the music. The habanera, the Toreador March, you know these songs. You've heard them a million times. They're all over TV and the movies. You feel like, oh, I've heard this. I know this bit. And it's also super dramatic. I mean, there's bullfighting and knife fighting and gypsies dancing and thievery, and it doesn't let up, really.
I've always wanted to see Carmen. I remember learning about it in school, like in middle school, and it just sounded so fun and dynamic, and I think it was in one of the opera books that my grandmother gave me, and, the music was so great, and it just...
Who doesn't love a bullfight?
I remember one time in high school, we had to do a project in my anatomy and physiology class where you had to make an opera out of like something that we were learning. And my group got assigned coronary thrombosis.
What?
So I had to research. I had to research what a coronary thrombosis was, and you had to, get different points across. Like you had to, you had to use music from an opera. You had to sing the entire time.
Oh my God!
But you also had to give a definition. Right? It was just public school. Like,
awesome.
Yeah, public school. You had to give a definition. You had to explain the causes, the solutions. All that. And we did it to Carmen.
Nice.
And it was so much fun. And I still remember the lyrics.
Nice. Sing it.
We think we know your prognosis. It is something called coronary thrombosis.
Nice.
And it's just, plaque ruptures within me, the coronary vessel. It causes a big mess. Oh, Like you made it silly.
It.
And it's like, okay, now I know what coronary thrombosis is and I remember Carmen.
Exactly.
It's a double win.
So that's it, dads, moms, grandmas. There's the way to do it. To make an opera lover out of the kid in your life. The tools are there, it's not that tough, and it's worth it. Do the work, but make the work fun for them. And above all, go C. Carmen.
Grandma, if you're listening, let's go to Carmen.
Thanks for listening. I'm Eleni Hagen for Arts Edge, the digital learning program of the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts.